So here's some context for what we're going to be doing today. There are three main questions that we're trying to answer with this context. Number one, what does the word or the term New South mean? Number two, who was Henry Grady? And then number three, why would Henry Grady continue to go to the north? So the whole point of this video is to answer those three questions. Number one, as far as what the New South is that after the Civil War, and hopefully remember this, that all of that farming infrastructure that they had, the plantations, their slave society basically, couldn't work. Slaves were no longer legal. So as a result, the South had to find different ways to make money. The result is, number one, they still returned a lot of farming. That was still a very popular thing that was happening there. We learned about this through sharecropping. We've seen this. But secondly, we're looking at a shift. The idea here is that the idea of farming, and particularly these former slaves being in the same area, left a very clear connection to slavery, which obviously the people in power don't want people to make. So first thing was, well, let's create a new image for the South. Let's give them a new view, a new lens to look at them through. And the goal was to make it so that when the people at the time thought South, they didn't think of farming and agriculture. Instead, the goal was to make it more industrialized by producing things like iron, producing textiles, so like clothing, and railroads. So shift away from let's farm and sell farmed goods, raw materials, and instead we're going to become industry, like factories, make stuff. And the idea here is that they would need money to get this stuff off the ground, particularly from investors in the North, which brings us to Henry Grady. So Henry Grady, first off, was an editor for one of the leading newspapers, the Atlanta Constitution. When you look at your sourcing material for your sources on this particular lesson, you'll see that, right? It's right from that the Atlanta Constitution. That's his newspaper, or a newspaper that he's a part of. He was one of the biggest voices for this idea of the New South. So his goal was that he would go to the North and give speeches to business leaders that it would be a good idea, that it's a good investment for them to give the money to these Southern factories. And as a result, more money would come in, and they would make their money back from their investment. It would be good. One of the big parts of these speeches, though, is to convince these Northern business owners that the racist and slave-based history of the South wasn't a problem anymore, that the relations between blacks and whites was fine, that no need to worry, everything's going to be stable, it'll be great, we'll make money. As we'll see, and as we've already seen, obviously not the case, but this is his goal. And so as you look at the sources, the first one is going to be from Grady himself, making these claims, making this argument that, yes, Northern investors, come, spend your money on the South, build up this infrastructure, it'll be worth it. The opposite side of it is a rebuttal or a disagreement. So the idea that he makes his case in the newspaper, and then Brockett, Reverend Brockett, who is a pastor in Massachusetts, basically rips him apart and says this doesn't make any sense, and goes point by point about how his plan was either misguided or intentionally giving the wrong idea. We're going to dive in a little more about what the two sources are, what they say, when we get to the video about doing the sources a little later on. So for now, number one, New South is to rebuild the South into industry. Number two, Henry Grady gave speeches, was an editor, wanted to bring investors to the South. And number three, he kept going to get those investors to get money. So I'll see you in the next video. Good luck.